Hmm. What's up, Blueprint family? How y'all doing out there tonight? Thank you all for joining us. Yeah, we have a interesting show for you all tonight, much needed. We're talking about finances, premarital finances. So the topic for the night, the pros and cons of merging or keeping premarital accounts separate.
Mhm.
So merging or keeping premarital accounts separate is a big decision that many couples face when getting married. So they are essentially creating a new financial unit when people come together. So this is a positive thing, as it can be, as it can lead to greater financial security and stability. However, there are also some potential drawbacks and about merging finances. So it is important to be aware uh, of of financial merging before making a decision.
Yeah, the pros and cons of doing so. So we're going to go through those pros, those cons. But first, this really all came about from a great question that we received. So, as always, when we have it available, we love to start with this great question because it really gives us an opportunity to help illustrate this. So, others can really see how this can play out in relationships. So, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our question.
Yep.
And we are going to get right into it. All right.
And before you start,
oh,
honey, but for all the viewers out there, just remember that at any moment in time, if you all have any questions or comments, please share them with us. So because we are always ready and available to answer your questions and view your comments. So please take part. So go ahead, honey.
Yep. Okay. So the subject. Oh, Instagram. If you would like to see the question live up on the screen, head over to our YouTube, Blueprint Family Jewels, so you can check it out there.
Right. And it's also in HD audio and video.
Yep. So, subject. Thoughts on keeping premarital accounts separate. My fiance wants a prenup, and I agreed. In our 30s, we are both in our 30s and have our own assets, checking, savings, 401k, cars, and I have 100k in student loans. He does not. We want to keep these separate in case of divorce. My fiance didn't have any student loans before, so he has more accounts, multiple savings, Vanguard, Bitcoin. We both plan on working during the marriage. My lawyer made me so overwhelmed. She didn't think this was fair for me because it seems like my fiance has more money. We both make good money, both six figures, but he makes 30K more. And since he didn't have loans, he has more accounts and therefore more assets. We both agreed that we wanted to keep these marital assets separate in case of divorce, but never agreed on what happens to the value of these accounts during the marriage. There is a clause for alimony if either of us had to stop working for whatever reason. Am I dumb for agreeing that each of our accounts are separate in the case of divorce? What mine is mine and what's his is his. All of these accounts were created before we even started dating, so they are totally separate. My lawyer seems to think of doing an equitable breakdown, 60-40, or whatever the breakdown is, and that I should think about the value of the accounts during marriage, 401k, for example. This is a very interesting question, especially during this modern dating scene that we see. We went over this yesterday, how we were talking about that usually couples entering into marriage now from the modern dating scene go into it with what? At age 30, in their 30s, I think statistically it was like 38. So this is right on along with them, and they have plenty of assets. But now they're about to get married. So what do you do? I think this is a good question.
So what would you say about that?
Well, there's a lot, but if you want to, first we could start by breaking it down. It's my fiance wants a prenup, and I agreed. So I think it seems like they've been having some conversation on the fact that they both have their own assets and they want to protect this in case of divorce. We talked about this yesterday, how especially being that they have these these extra assets that sure you want to keep these things protected, but in this case they want to keep them separate. So it's kind of a little different than just a prenup, because in a prenup, of course, you're saying this is what I came in with, this is what it is. But this is a different dimension of it in a way, because now you're saying, okay, this is what I have and I want to protect it, but I also want to keep it separate.
They have to keep it separate. The reason being they have to keep it separate because they created the prenup this way. So
they're in the making of the prenup. This is what she's saying. They're trying to figure out if that's what they should do.
Hold on, go back.
Keep it separate or not. So they agree. They want to prenup they agree.
Once they prenup.
This is the building of
okay,
the
so
prenup.
they're not married yet. Okay.
No, yeah,
I would. If I was them, to be honest with you, since they're already making enough money to support themselves, then they should keep the prenup the same as far as what they already included in it, as far as them having separate accounts. And I'm saying this because that they are not going to have to argue about their own money. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that's why this is a great conversation, because there are definitely the pros and the cons to this. So that's certainly a con.
I can't really see much cons in this. The cons will come is if they merge an account and then they get a divorce, because then they're going to have to try to figure out how to settle that with the current prenup that they have, or they're going to have to revise a prenup if they get a joint account afterwards, in which they're going to have to fight for. So I would advise them to keep their accounts separate. This marriage is not about money. It's about love. And that's what I was talking about yesterday, is that you can actually use a prenuptial agreement to actually keep you all together instead of apart. And this is a prime example of that. So she said that the alimony portion comes in is if someone stops working. Mm-hmm. So they both have to agree on that. So maybe she has children, she becomes a housewife. Then that's when she's obligated to alimony. Perfect. That's fair and reasonable to me. Or maybe he falls ill and becomes disabled. Then he's subject to alimony. That's perfect. That's reasonable to me. That all makes perfect sense there. So what do you think?
I really think, in situations like this, it's really it's so personal, where it's going to come right on down to more of a personal decision on how you envision your finances, what's your financial goals, and all of that. And so I really think I want to just go ahead and pull up my notes that I kind of made earlier, because this is it's a tricky little subject, because they are in the making of making the prenup. And you do have to consider the value of 401ks are going to drastically increase. Bitcoin could drastically increase. Retirements, whatever other saving things could drastically increase. So I think that a lot of conversation does have to be made about what that looks like. Because again, what you mentioned earlier, when you marry, you are essentially going to come and create another financial unit, whether you make it one that's separate completely, or one that's, kind of hanging on as a third party type thing, because you both still have your own independent accounts going on, is really personal. But I mean, to be completely honest, there are lots of pros and disadvantages to not merging accounts or anything. So,
what do you think in her aspect?
Well, I think, again, it's so personal, but there are several potential.
Let me ask this question. I don't mean to cut you off. Do you agree that they should keep their accounts separate? How about that? That's a simple yes or no.
I think that it's not, though, because it's a lot of conversation that has to be made on what that looks like. For example, there are several positives to merging your accounts, regardless of if they were already created elsewhere. For example, when two people pool together their resources, it drastically increases the amount of money that is to the disposal of the family. So, say he comes across and gets a huge Bitcoin windfall, and it's great, and he's got now so much money that was not available prior to the marriage, but now it is available. At what where This is where that it gets tricky, because technically it's his. And if they decide that, oh, we're always going to keep it separate, then it could always be separate. But what if the family falls into a issue and he says, oh, well, no, mine is protected, my Bitcoin is protected by the prenup, but then the family falls to the wayside because you're not picking up you're not wanting to bring in your money that was already established premarital, is what I'm saying. And because these aren't assets that just stay the same. The value of that Bitcoin isn't always going to be the same throughout their marriage, or the value of their 401k or their Vanguard, any of that. All of that, it changes and increases throughout the time. So you could use that to your advantage and help further along the family if you merge it together and create one big family unit. Or you can keep it separate. That's what I said. It's a lot of pros and cons, and it's really just personal. I can't give my personal view per se, because in my honest opinion, I think when you're married, unless it's something that is super, oh, it has to stay separate, or you really don't want it to be included in the marriage, I don't think it should be off limits to being an option of being included in the marriage, because it's something that could benefit the family. When you come and you pull your resources together and you work on a team level and in that mindset, then you're able to do more. You're able to cover more expenses, such as housing, food, transportation. It's just easier, it leads to greater financial security if you pull your resources together, but it leads to greater independent security if you don't. So it really just depends. And I think that her lawyer made a great point by saying that. I think I'm trying to go back to that. Go ahead.
Okay. I agree currently with what they're doing. And the thing with the Bitcoin, and if the father doesn't step in and help out the family, then he be damned for that, because that's not the heroic father or husband that you need in your life. That if your money is worth more to you than your family, and that example that you gave is that he's going to let his family fall by the wayside because of some sort of emergency, and he's not touching his Bitcoin, then that man he's not worth the Bitcoin that he holds.
That's so true.
Then that is grounds for divorce, because dude, you're not even looking out for your family. I don't think that that's the case here, because they're actively moving to get married.
But that's what they agreed on, though. That is the case. They said, what is mine, and what's yours is yours.
I like to believe that this man is going to step up and be like, honey, if you ain't got it, I got it. What's mine is also yours too.
But that's not contract. That's not what the prenup would say. The prenup would say what's his is his, and he's obligated under all.
But that's under the case of a divorce. The prenup is for the divorce.
It's not. This prenup is also agreeing that they're going to always keep each of their accounts separate.
And
so that is how
you have to understand, because they're both making their own money. A lot of married couples do have separate accounts. They keep their money separate, because a lot of working married people do keep separate accounts. And I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that. If you do that, you do need a prenuptial agreement, though, so that in the case of a divorce, your spouse doesn't go and try to take what you got, and you cover yourself and you both cover it, because that's fair. You both worked for your own separate incomes. You will both worked for your own separate money. Now, the problem may come if you all actually, and we're going to talk about pros and cons, but what happens if you merge that money together and then all of a sudden someone's spending and buying stuff, small stuff, and all of a sudden that small stuff equals up to large things, and then you all are not keeping track on this.
Yeah.
So that is one thing. If you know that one person is not financially responsible, but the other one is, it may be a good idea to have a separate account so that your family doesn't fall by the wayside because of risky spending or irresponsible spending that's going on.
Yeah.
Too. And then also too, you all don't have to get a divorce because somebody's spending too much money.
Yeah.
So those are my things. I think that's a positive that they're doing this, but my advice would be to keep those accounts separate. Keep those accounts separate. The lawyer wants to see an equitable breakdown of 60-40. I mean, no, I don't think that is needed at all because she already has her retirement and he has his. He's not going to let her fall by the wayside anyway. Because look, when you think about it, if he was to pass away, all of that stuff is hers anyway. This is only just a doomed situation of divorce. So that 60-40 thing, you don't have to worry about that. I don't think so because she's already making money on her own. Why does she have to go after 20% more of what he got when she already got her own?
Well, because he has just sorry to add some context to what you're asking, is just because the fact that he makes what 30,000 more and he doesn't have any debt. So he has essentially more assets and stuff, but it's his. It is very much his.
Right.
And that's what you're coming up
But
with.
she's agreeing that that's her debt.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that's the thing.
Right.
That's another thing that people need to understand too. You don't marry people to alleviate your debts. And that's not fair either. That's the same thing by coming to your relationship with baggage. I think she's being very responsible by saying that I'm going to pay my college loans. I make enough money to pay my college loans, and I don't need you to pay those for me.
Yeah.
Very responsible, and that's very honest in her part to do that. So that's the reason why I don't see any obligation for the extra 20, 40 or 20%. And regardless of the fact that he makes 30,000 more, that's only probably, I don't know, what, extra $6,000 a year. That's not really much, to be honest with you, to harp over 20% of what he owns in the case of a divorce when she's making she's making six figures too. Like, no, I don't agree with the lawyer on that aspect. That sounds like more so something that the lawyer's tying in there for that person to get money in case of the divorce. To be honest with you, it's because lawyers do things like that in order to get their hands in the money. Because I looked it up today that on average, a national average, a prenuptial agreement only costs $650. That beats $70,000, the cost of divorce today without a prenuptial agreement. So lawyers will try to get their hands in those prenups. And they would love for you to come back in case of a divorce, to be honest with you. But no, that's my viewpoint coming from a professional standpoint and seeing what these two have got going on and how to manage that. I think that in this case, because they both make a good amount of money, then a prenup will benefit them in that way. Now, there are some instances where couples do need to merge accounts because they don't make enough. And that helps out, in multiple ways.
Yeah, maybe we should just go ahead and get into that. Yeah, because honestly, from this, any question when it comes to this, I think, to be honest, it's just a deeper conversation that's just going to need to be had. And more so, not so much figuring out whether or not you should increase how much you're asking for in the case of divorce, but more so figuring out what your day-to-day finances with your spouse would look like. If he does have more money and less debt, that means he's going to have more money left over after every paycheck compared to you, being that you will have, your money and your debt to pay from. So I think more so the next conversation that needs to be had is, what will your day-to-day finances look like, and who's going to take on that load of, who's paying what or more, just because, hey, he's the man. You said that you don't think that y'all would ever stop working. You both will continue to work. So that's great. Now it's just trying to figure out, hey, what is it really going to look like day to day? Because, you're already working towards a prenup, then that's great. But so let's get into some of the pros and cons of merging or not merging your finances. And we kind of hit on the first one, which was increased financial security, of course. So a big pro is when you are deciding to go ahead and merge your resources, you have more to give for the family. Both of you guys are working, both of your checks would go into one account and it would be worked out from there. Now, maybe from that, y'all could split off your savings if you are going to keep your accounts open, your separate accounts open, then or whatever, then that's where the breakdown of how much money will actually go into this joint account. But it just gives you an easier option of, which is another benefit, being able to have simplified financial management. If you have all one joint account and all of your bills coming out of that joint account, you then can really see like where your spending is, what's going on, who's paying for what, like what's the best way to allocate this money. And then it's more so looked in as a pool that you guys are working from together versus just, two separate accounts. Because when two people have two different accounts, it can be really hard to keep track and of what's in these accounts and what bills are going to come out of certain accounts, and making sure that these bills are paid on time because you have more accounts that you have to keep up with. So merging finances can make it easier for you to stay on top of those financial obligations so that you can avoid financial problems, because it's not like you're all over the place trying to keep track
Right.
of accounts.
Well, you see, in her example, because they have separate accounts, then this is where it gets interesting with the bills.
Right.
So, you can splitting utilities or whatever the case may be. I think it would be easier if they both took on the responsibility of paying one bill. That one person pays utilities, the other person pays the mortgage, then that other person pays the groceries. So they can do things like that. That will help to with the simplification aspect as well.
Yeah.
Instead of merging the accounts together.
Yes, for sure. That's definitely a solution to go about if, you are going to keep all of your accounts separate. So another one of the main pros for merging your finances is simply that you're going to build a stronger relationship. So when two people share their finances, when two people actually come together and show that level of transparency, you are essentially really sharing your life together. You are really saying, hey, we're in this, we're pulling together, this is what we're doing. We're working from the same accounts. It's complete transparency. We can really see what's going on and we trust each other. You will have a deeper level of intimacy and trust in the relationship. It's going to get rid of a lot of the thoughts of secrecy and how much money this person got and, what's this person doing on that. So, it just really deepens the level of trust and intimacy that a couple can have if you choose to take the route of merging your finances. So again, it's pros and cons with everything, but here are some scenarios that I just simply thought of that makes it easier when you are merging finances versus when they're not. So, of course, buying a house, that's a given one. Merging finances makes it certainly easier for you to qualify for a mortgage and for you to afford your down payment. You're able to meet your financial goals much faster as a family unit when you decide to really merge your finances and do things as one cohesive unit. Another one would be that it makes it easier to save for retirement. So, of course, you both, in this case with the question, they both had their own, retirement things going on, and that's all great. But also, it's so much easier if you can see and set goals together as a team and be able to put in money together to meet those financial goals or any kind of goals, whether it's, starting a business together or maybe buying a car or going on that vacation. When you are merging your finances, you're really able to plan and save together versus trying to figure out who's going to do what and who little bit. It's kind of like you, in a way, create a competitive spirit within the relationship, because it's like, oh, well, I already put this month, I did this, you ain't do this, it's your month to do that. You get what I'm saying? It's not so much of a unit cohesively like, oh, here's all our money together and this is the plan, that whether the husband or the wife or y'all both together, y'all initiate figuring out the plan of what you're going to do with the money. So it's just another positive when you are actually going to merge your finances. Of course, children, when you have children and you're actually planning for doctor's appointments, colleges, clothing, all these different things that a child has, daycare, all this, again, it just makes it a little more complicated because then again, you're trying to keep track. You're trying to tally up, like I spent this amount of money on this, and then in this case I can kind of see some type of conflict maybe breeding on later on down the line if you guys don't have a conversation on who is really going to take on a major of the load of finances, regardless of whether or not you guys keep your finances separate. If that's not something that's easily going to be agreed upon, then it's going to create some conflict, and you constantly are going to be trying to keep tally on who brought what this month. How much did you spend on this month? Utilities increased this month. That means you can't, this person feels like they put out too much this month because they had to do all of this. The woman in particular, she has more debt coming out of her check. So does that mean she has to give up the same? It's such a slippery slope when you're hitting this equality with finances thing, because although she's making the same amount as him, every month her check doesn't look like him because she has more debt coming out. So does that mean, though, because she still has more debt coming out, she still has to put up her 500 just like he got to put up his 500? I'm just using that number. But
what is it his responsibility to pay for a debt?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is,
right.
if you
then the answer is no.
No. What I'm saying is, in all things being equal, if they both make the same amount of money, but she has more debt that is coming out of her check every month, vague numbers, they both bring home $2,000 a check. Her check, by the time she's done paying all of her bills, she only had $900 left. He has $1,800 left because he doesn't have all these bills coming out or all these debts coming out. Does that mean that she also has to put up her 500, the same equal amount like
to his 500?
To his 500, and leaving
to
her
be honest
with
you,
that?
to be honest with you, the answer is yes, because she's coming into the relationship with debt. It's not, you don't look to offset. You're not coming into the relationship for money. And I said that in the beginning. The whole thing about the marriage is that you all are marrying each other because you love each other and want to be of service to each other. So
but
the
is
money,
that of being of service to each other? What benefit of it is it? Because it's just she's putting out, I don't see the shared benefit in that. With
the shared benefit is that the bills are getting paid. That's
that would get done regardless. That's my only, I guess, drawback when it comes to not merging finances. If they were both single people, they would have to pay their bills regardless. And if they don't, they haven't even done, when you decide not to merge any accounts at all, you're completely keeping your life separate, and that doesn't form.
Why though? Why does your money have to be your life?
Because that's your resources. That's how you sustain
people
your
are
life.
your life. People are your life.
I
Your
get
money
that.
is just your resource.
No, what I mean is your money is your resources to take care of your life. It's your pool. If you are coming together with a man and he makes more money than you and all sorts of great stuff, but you are still 100% footing your own bill for yourself, what is even the point of getting married?
Then why are you working? Then why is she still working? She's working for what? Money. Her money. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So she needs to stop working then. And then he can pay all the bills.
Well, that would be option.
That's the thing.
Or they could put there together and it still be a shared financial unit, not so much two single individual people.
Or have a joint account of something. But I think that because they're both working, what you don't want to happen is this. You don't want someone overspending. And I think that it's smart that they keep accounts separate, because they could buy whatever the heck they want to buy.
Well, that's why I said it was actually a conversation. I actually wrote that down for some things that we're going to get into later. But it's some steps that you need to take when you are considering whether or not you're going to merge your accounts. And spending habits is a financial conversation that has to take place. But that doesn't mean just because one is a big spender and one is a saver that you all can't come to making good financial wholesome decisions together.
Well, you and I both know that women are the number one consumers when it comes to the family unit.
Yeah.
Women spend more money than men do. And often at times women don't want to be told what to buy and what not to buy. So the caveat women to having your rights on what you want to buy is to have your own account. Have your own account and have that separate from the money that goes towards the bills. Because what you don't want to happen is that you overspent your money and then you all looking at each other because you all got evicted. You don't want that to happen. That's just what I'm saying. That's smart that you all have separate accounts. If you all both are working separate, that's the whole point of that. Now, if one person is not working, then yeah, you automatically have a joint account because that man has to pay for everything that you do and provide for you. That's the portion of it that's the caveat to having a stay-at-home wife. But once the woman start working, then she's saying that I'm responsible also too for my finances and my debt. That's what she's saying. But also too, I get it that there's a joint living arrangement that's going on when it
But
comes
it's
to marriage.
not. Like, in my opinion, that's not a joint. And to me, y'all might as well just be roommates. Like, to me, I don't think
No,
that
money isn't the relationship though, honey. That's what I'm trying to show you.
it isn't, but part of being in a marriage is creating a joint financial unit in which both people are having their needs met. In my opinion, that's what I
Right,
thought.
but why they can't meet their needs with separate accounts? That's not a bad thing either.
Yeah, it's not, but it does not show that you're willing to share your life completely with somebody. It's still one foot
Money
in
is
and
not
one
your
foot out.
life, though. That's what I'm trying to get to you.
No, but money plays a big portion of your decision making and what you do with your life. Say, for example, this woman goes and she saves up all her money. We talked about this before. Girls trip. She saves up
No,
all her money. Nope.
that's different.
No, it's not, because
Yeah,
that
it
is
is.
her money. She made her money. And that is, she is entitled to do that's exactly what you said. If a woman makes her money and they keep their accounts separate, as long as it does not affect her portion of the bills, whatever they have talked about, she is entitled to
Okay.
do whatever
Right.
she
You're
wants
right.
to with her money.
Right. And
Therefore, it just creates, what I'm saying is, having those separate joint accounts creates a opportunity for conflict to arise, because it's still one foot in of, I can do what I want to do because I make my own money, and one foot out of, I'm also a part of this marriage and I want to be committed and I want to show that I'm doing this, but I got my independence slightly over here. That's just all I'm saying it establishes.
right. And then the man goes by his plane trip too and packs his bags and goes on girls trip.
And yes, that again does not do anything but breed conflict. And that's not, to me, conducive to a happy relationship and a happy marriage.
Right.
It's easier if you can both come together and have those shared joint finances where it's transparency, it's conversation. If you have joint accounts, then you are having conversation. If you have separate accounts, there is no obligation to have a conversation. It just creates the opportunity for more independence, for more, this is my money, this is my, it says mine. When you're trying to come together in a relationship, it should be about we. And yes, I totally agree. You protect their assets that you have come into a marriage with. Certainly do that. But when you have established, this is what I'm coming in with, but I understand that I'm also going to then take it and put this with yours so that we can merge it together and grow it together. It creates the mindset of we're growing it together, not I'm growing my Bitcoin, I'm growing my 401k, I'm growing my retirement, I'm growing this, I'm doing this. It's more, if it just doesn't foster that environment of we, it fosters the environment of me, because these are my accounts.
Then she needs to stop working. That's the part that I think that you're the grasping of the fact that the woman's working, the man is working, they both deserve their own account. Now, when you say that she's stepping out and going on girls trip,
that's not stepping out. That's doing what she want to do with her money. That's not stepping out.
Yeah, but that's also doing what she wants to do with her body and herself.
No, that's not. That's doing what she wants to do with her money. Same way that if he makes his money and he wants to go gamble it off or do whatever he wants to do, he's entitled to do whatever he wants with his money. Is she entitled to also have her bad feelings about it? Sure. And that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think
it just breeds conflict somewhere down the line.
I think that girls trip is a stretch, because that also is your time that you're having away from your husband. And if you don't talk about that time that you're going to have away with your husband, you just go on girls trip, then he deserves to, then that prenup needs to be then you all need to then you all have a challenge in your relationship and justifying a divorce, because this woman is stepping out on the relationship on the fact that she did not have a conversation with you that she's going to be gone for an extended period of time, not knowing what the heck she's doing.
No, but let's say that they did have that conversation. She did tell
Well,
him,
then it's fine.
Truth be
Then.
told, she doesn't need, under the logic of, I'm just challenging thought, but under the logic of, these are my separate accounts, I'm not entitled to tell you what I do with my money because they're my separate accounts. Under that logic, she's not entitled to tell him that or have a conversation with him, is what I'm saying. If they had joint accounts to where they both were putting money into it, then it opens the door for a conversation. He can give his input on that. She's not entitled to give him any conversation on that money.
Why he needs to put input about her money? He don't need to provide input on her money.
It would be if he felt some type of way about her going on something like a girls' trip. That's him being entitled to.
I'm trying to get it through to you that a girls' trip has nothing to do with the money aspect of it. It has everything to do with honesty and loyalty and conversation and communication.
Not to a working woman. All I'm saying is this just really reminds me of that question of the working woman where she was making her own money. If we're going into the shaky grounds of, hey, I make my own money, these are my accounts, I'm not required to have a conversation with you about what goes into my accounts. He is not entitled to give his input on what she decides to spend her money on, whether that's a girl's trip or a dress or whatever it is. That's just, it's shaky ground.
Along with the girl's trip or her purchasing her ticket. So basically what you're saying is that this woman doesn't have to have a conversation at all with her husband to let him even know that she's going on a trip.
No, that's not what I said. What I'm saying is if they have separate accounts and they are drawing, if they keep the accounts separate, like the question, if they keep their accounts separate completely, they don't have a joint account.
There's no conversation at all.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is she isn't completely obligated if they have set in stone their different utilities.
The obligation is marriage.
Of course, but the obligation of her telling him, after I paid my bills, I had this amount of money left and I'm going to go ahead and put this amount of money aside, and that's my money because we agreed in this prenup or whatever we've set up that we're going to keep these accounts separate. She is entitled to do whatever she wants to do. He can't really come back and then say, oh, no, I want to have some input on what you spend your extra money on after you put in for the bills. He's not entitled to that because they decided to keep these finances separate. That's that slippery slope.
That's fine.
No,
that's fine as long as they have a conversation about it.
Certainly.
I was under the impression from what you're saying is that you told me that there's no obligation to it. So basically what you're saying, what that means is that they don't even have to have a conversation about it.
Not the obligation is marriage, of that her saying, I'm going to spend my money on this. If that's her money and that's in her account, no, she's not obligated to tell him I'm going to, or she is obligated to say, I'm going on a girls' trip. I'm going on a girls' trip and I'm spending this amount of money. She's not asking him. She's letting him know. It would be a separate situation if they had joint accounts, to where then she would be obligated to ask him, honey, I'm thinking about tapping into our joint account for a girls' trip. He would then be obligated to speak up and tell her, I'm not interested in you going on this girls' trip. He then has every right to do so. But when you don't decide to merge accounts, you keep a slight slippery slope of conflict being able to take place, because you're saying essentially our accounts are separate. What I do with my money after I have paid the obligated bills that we agreed upon is my decision, because y'all agreed to keep y'all accounts separate. That is just a con that goes along with keeping your accounts separate. It's just one that you have to face. And I'm challenging that to get people to realize that you have to keep these things in mind, because it really doesn't foster that unit of open communication, of open conversation, of open transparency, of obligation to have that conversation, of obligation to consider my spouse because we have a joint account and they're going to see that I took this money out. It doesn't even have to be for a girl's trip. It could be for a pair of shoes or a dress or a purse or whatever. You know what I mean? Or expensive lunch or a spa trip, whatever it is. She's
Right.
not obligated, though, if they have joint accounts. And he's not obligated either. He's not obligated either. And that's where the conflict can breed. And it doesn't create that.
I mean, I don't even think there's conflict because, like you said, that they have their separate accounts. The whole purpose of that is to spend their money separately. To be honest with you, that's what a separate account means, is that I'm spending my money independent of you. But what I try to get to you to realize this has nothing to do with the sanctity of marriage, with the loyalty of marriage or the appreciation of marriage. Money is the resource that fuels the household. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand.
No, I completely understand that. You didn't have to try to get that. But what I am more so trying to get you to see, though, is the sanctity of marriage isn't as deep as it would be if you merged accounts.
Well, that's what you see with a lot of rich folk. Yeah. A lot of rich folks have separate accounts all over the place. Off seashore accounts, this account there. You got stocks tied up in this, but it's not joint.
Yeah, but most of the time, though, if we're going to talk about rich people, most of the time it's only one person that's working. Usually the man is the supplier of the money, and the woman could care less about all the accounts because she can get money from whatever account she wants.
These are two both above average people, and they're talking about having their own separate accounts.
Well, yeah, they're not rich, though. It's a difference between, they don't have offshore accounts. Rich people, wealthy people have offshore accounts where you're talking about they're putting money in different places like that. This is kind of average in the sense of a lot of people are making $100,000 when they're in their 30s.
No,
they're late 30s.
Only 13% of men make six figures, and 7% of women make six figures. So this isn't average. Okay. This isn't an average situation.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't consider this rich neither, to the point where they're both...
I said it's above average. This is above average situation that goes on. Usually people who are in average relationships, they have to merge accounts. A lot of that has to do with survival, to survive, so that they both can meet the needs of their bills and utilities and rent and water. Yeah, and food.
Creates more financial stability. That was the whole purpose. That's honestly one of the main purposes of two people coming together, because the average Americans don't make a lot on their own. So when you are coming together, it is in the best interest for especially the average married couple to merge your finances, because then it increases the amount of resources that is readily available. And then it also creates a transparency. All I'm simply saying is that it creates a slippery slope for conflict when you keep finances separate completely. It's just, now maybe it helps ease, there are ways to ease that, but if you keep it 100% separate, there are some big potential drawbacks from it. Of course, when two people have different spending habits or financial goals, it can be really difficult on how to agree how to manage your money. So in particular, if you are having two different, I think you said something about this before, if one person's spending, and the other person is saving, you're looking at two totally different financial habits that you have. That can make it super hard to try to merge an account. So of course, that's going to have to be worked on before you can even try to merge an account. And it might not even be in the best interest. It can certainly lead to arguments and resentment if you merge your accounts with somebody and they just start overspending all over the place. So that's a certain con to merging finances, of course.
And another drawback is merging finances is that it can lead to a loss of independence. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that matters, but when two people have joint accounts, they can have less control over their own money.
That for you,
this can be a problem for people who value their independence.
That's what you were talking about, though. That for you, you're saying that these modern people, if they make over 100,000, they value their independence so much that they're not interested in merging and their resources together and creating a larger pool. To me, that's what I'm saying. I don't honestly think it really matters. When you're saying that you're going to get into a relationship, you should
look at it on the positive side, though. Buying gifts, showing signs of gratitude, things like that. It makes it easier to surprise your spouse or your husband when you want to buy them a gift, and you have your own money allotted to you so that you can do these things. Say if you want to make a big purchase of buying my wife a Mercedes Benz S Class 550 or 350 diesel, then I can do that without her even knowing that I took the money out the account.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the positive side, and that two good people get together and marry who are responsible people, not the hood ratchet, you know, people that come together who are fiscally irresponsible and trying to hide money from each other and stuff like that. I'm not coming from that.
But that's what
I'm coming.
happens.
Yeah,
That it
I
just
guess,
creates
but
it. That's what really happens, because think about it. A
but
lot
then
of
those people
times
don't need to be together.
they don't need to be in relationships, and
Right.
that's
I'm
the
speaking
issue
from
with that.
I'm looking at the honest, hardworking, nice people, the good value, wholesome,
So then
righteous
why
people.
wouldn't they want to merge accounts? If you are wholesome, value, and righteous, why would you not want that level of transparency?
I just explained it. So
Well, you
it
said because
keeps
of a loss of independence.
no, but yeah, because it allows you to gift give
It
and
also allows
conceal.
you to surprise your spouse on the gift giving for yourself. Girls trip, like it just brings me right back to that. You can gift
Yeah,
yourself.
but I mean, a righteous woman would not want to go on a trip at all without her husband. That's the thing.
I'm not in disagreement with you on that at all. All I'm saying is righteousness is a very touchy thing to try to throw into when you're talking about finances. If you're getting in a relationship and you're fearing your independence of finances being taken away from you, ultimately when you are coming into a relationship and a marriage, it does the whole process better if you can create a pool and a financial unit together versus trying to operate as separate independent people coming together to create a something.
Well, the thing is the reason why they did it this way too, because she has over $100,000 in debt.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Yeah,
that is the reason why. It's really what they're doing is separating debt. It's not really that they're not wanting to merge accounts. They're really, that comes with, if you bring debt into a relationship, you need to own up to that debt and you need to pay that down.
Mhm.
Now, what happens is if you commingle finances, then whose money is paying the debt?
Right. Well, see, that all goes down to having a financial plan together. When you merge finances, you then come into a joint pool where you're able to
Then
look
the
and
debt
figure
is
out what's going
merged
on.
together, right?
Isn't that what happens when you get married, though?
No, but that's not what I was saying. It shouldn't happen that way.
But that is what happens, though. When you marry,
It can happen, or either you keep it separate and then person, like, I kudos to her for being responsible for her.
Yeah.
She's making six figures. Why does the man who makes only $6,000 more got to be responsible? That $6,000 that he got is going towards her debts. You get what I'm saying? Like that makes no earthly sense to me when they both are living comfortably, making six figures, and then now he has to draw more money out for her college loans or credit irresponsibilities or whatever have you.
Again, to challenge that narrative, it goes all back to deciding to create a financial unit that works in cohesion. You are able to knock out debt in a faster way than you would be if you were not saying that he is entitled to pay for it, not saying that at all, but I am going to challenge the narrative and say, if you have financial goals as a couple to get out of debt, say they want to go and have children, they're in the 30s, say they want to get a house and have children, it's something that they want to do together. If that is the case and that's something they want to do together and they have decided to want to spend their lives together, it is and more so in their best interest to work faster to get their debt paid off so that they can then move on with their life. That $100,000 of hers would, maybe it went to the, maybe now just to challenge it, it's not necessarily saying that he has to go and pay her bill, but what he could do is take on a larger load of the daily household bills so that she can then focus on putting down most of her money that she's working on to hurry up and get her out of debt so that they can then focus on building their lives together. You just work to get your goals checked off faster if you can work in cohesion versus if you're working separately and he's just waiting along for her to hurry up and pay off their debt so that then he can include her income into whether or not they're going to buy a house together. See, that's just my thing. I feel if you're a man and you're wanting to enter into marriage and you are courting your woman, certainly vet the woman that may not have as much debt, because that's something you have to take in consideration. When you marry somebody, their debt becomes your debt. If you are looking to have these financial goals with this person and build with them, it is in your best interest for y'all to get rid of that debt. That debt is going to loom over both of y'all, and it would hold them both back, especially if she's not going to stop working and they're going to use their income to qualify for a certain house or a certain car or whatever it is.
Live within your means. If they live within their means,
that still don't get them out of debt though, unless he takes over.
That's the thing. You got healthy debt and you got bad debt. That's the thing. Her college loans are not by far a bad debt.
It is bad debt because it's high interest, and unless
live within your means.
Certainly.
They make enough money to afford a $1 million home. Now, here's the thing. If she has $100,000 debt, more than likely they won't live in that $100 home. I mean, $1 million house.
Why? Because they can't pay it off fast enough.
Then live in a $500,000 home. Live in a $330,000 home.
I
live
agree.
within your means. If they're trying to do something like that, then they're both fiscally irresponsible. That's another issue.
I didn't put number to a house. I just put number to the fact of, in general, if they're trying to qualify for any house, it's in her best interest to get rid of her debt.
Or either don't use her credit, just use his.
Okay, and that would be a great thing to do. Also, in the financial planning aspect is what I'm saying. It has to be some give. He can't expect not to want to pay her debt, but also expect her to 100% foot all of her portion of the bills and her debt, and they still accomplish their financial goals as a unit, is all I'm saying. The financial goals as a unit will never get accomplished in the speed that it could if they work together, versus him waiting on her to pay off her debt or them working separately to try to come together. It just doesn't say teamwork to me. That's just, how I kind of look at it. So, I mean, I totally see your side of it, but I'm just thinking in long-term aspects of financial goals and being married. It physically can look better and play out faster and in better circumstances if you do merge your finances together. But again, just like with this question that we had tonight, it can go either way, and it's really up to a personal choice of the couple. But I did actually come up with some great things that you guys would regardless have to think about and consider when trying to figure out whether or not you should merge your finances. And the first one would be addressing your individual goals. It's kind of hitting on what we're talking about now, but it's super important for you guys to sit down and write out your financial goals as a couple. What are you guys planning on doing? Do you want to save retirement separately? They already have their 401ks and stuff. Is that something y'all want to keep doing?
Yeah, you have to do that.
Yeah, you want to keep doing, but
they have to do that separate.
You can also, add into other things that you want to do together. Is it ways that y'all want to, save for retirement together? That's an option. Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to start a business? Merging finances certainly makes it easier to achieve these goals. But, of course, if you have a spouse who does not have the same financial goals as you, maybe your spouse isn't interested in living in a house. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe he wants to buy a house. This is where the conflict can come in. Maybe he wants to buy a house, but she doesn't want to buy a house because she got too much debt. That would put a stall on their relationship because their financial goals aren't meeting at that time. But that would be where it could really be more of a benefit for the financial unit if they merge finances and worked on tackling things together.
Yeah, just make sure you have this conversation before you get married. Just like they are. I mean, they're trying to incorporate this stuff into a prenuptial agreement, which is awesome. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Because this will basically, you don't want to marry into a situation where even, you all are not seeing eye to eye when it comes to finances.
Yep.
Because that is the number 2 reason why people get divorced. And then I think it's what is it?
No, it was
infidelity.
Yeah,
irreconcilable. This is number 3. This is the number 3rd reason why people do get divorced is because of finances. But I think it's more so because people being fiscally irresponsible. It's never being, I'm getting a divorce because we got too much money. in separate accounts. I don't
Yeah.
see that being a deal, a
Yes,
issue.
spending habits. So that's
Right.
certainly a conversation that has to take place. You have to consider each other's spending habits. So what does it look like? Are one of you a big saver or one of you a big spender? And how are these habits going to affect each other if y'all do merge accounts or if y'all do keep them separate? Would it be one thing of like if they keep their accounts separate and then the one spouse decides to blow up all their money and the other one's not able to meet their financial needs, then hey, like that's a big issue within the relationship, and that can certainly cause problems if you merge finances or keep them separate. So again, it's just one of those things where it can be kind of hard to track spending habits of your partner and your spouse if you aren't able to see actually what's going on and whether or not the accounts are
Well,
merged and transparent.
I mean, another not a solution for this is just like how they conduct businesses by having monthly finance reports.
Hmm.
So you and your wife can sit down. If you do have separate accounts, sit down on a Saturday, have some brunch, and pull out your financial reports and read them to each other and see how much money that you all have and are saving up and showing to each other that you both are fiscally responsible.
Yeah.
If you want to have those separate accounts, that will help alleviate all of the I guess all of the fears that you may have dealing with your spouse having her own account and you having yours, making sure that you all have emergency savings of some sort in the relationship.
Yeah.
So
I think a level of trust is what will play a huge part in whether or not you should merge finances or keep them separate. If you are having, like you mentioned, having some issues or fears or, anxieties about your spouse having a separate account, that is something to really consider because your level of trust is really going to determine whether or not you should be merging your accounts or keeping them separate. If you don't trust that your spouse is letting you know honestly what's in these accounts, if you don't trust that your spouse is saying, hey, this is what's, I'm spending every month, this is what's going on, this is what I have left over. Maybe you feel like they're stashing away more than what they're actually saying. It could really happen. That just really depends on if this is something that you're really going to be able to make a lifelong thing if y'all are already having conflicts about trust. So your level of trust will play a huge part in whether or not you should merge your finances, I think, in my opinion. And the last one is like culture. So cultural differences and overall perceptions of how finances should be managed and budgeted. So usually not usually, but some customs believe that the man should take care of the finances and keep everything in order, and some customs actually have the woman doing that as the financier. That's a known thing. So it's just really trying to sit down and have the conversation on, hey, who do you envision being the one who's going to help us keep track of, if we do have all these separate accounts, who's gonna, are we all gonna, how is this gonna work? Who's gonna break that down? How's that gonna happen? Or if we are gonna merge in accounts, who's going to make sure the bills are coming out at the same time? And then even still, that's something to consider if you keep your accounts separate, making sure that you both are saying, hey, I'm making sure to keep track that this money is coming out of this account and this money is coming out of that account. So it's just really important to have a lot of conversation on what you expect and how you actually envision your overall marriage and life going when it comes to finances with your spouse.
yep, and here are some steps a couple should take. And
Oh yeah, we kind of hit on a lot of these already. Having the conversation about your financial goals, that's pretty much what we
yeah,
talked
and then
about.
be honest about your spending habits.
Hmm.
We talked about that, and then talk about your debts. You need
Hmm.
to talk about all this stuff before you get married, and then also some ground rules as far as finances. So, if you all decide to keep a joint account, how much money you're going to stash away each month
Hmm.
for the per paycheck. So you want to put those ground rules together. And
Yeah.
then also be transparent about your purchases too, especially big, large purchases.
Yeah.
Even if you decide to have a separate account or either one joint account,
Yeah.
a joint account together.
Another thing that I kind of thought of just when you had said that, when it comes to speaking with your spouse about your debt, make sure that you guys are still coming up with a plan to pay off your debt. So regardless of who has the debt or not, if you are not the one that brought the debt in, it's super okay to still ask your spouse their opinions on how you can go about breaking down this debt and getting rid of it. That should still be a concern for your spouse because you guys are still working to have a financial unit together. So don't put off that and take on that load all for yourself, trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. It still needs to be an open conversation because, like we kind of mentioned earlier, it may require your spouse spending a little bit more for rent or utilities or whatever the case may be, so that you can put a little bit more of your money towards your debt so that you guys can reach your goal.
Right.
In the end, it's really about reaching goals, not money. You often say that it's not about money. It isn't about money, but it is about helping your family reach the financial goals that you have put in place. And what that means is going to look different from everybody, but you certainly have to make sure that you're sitting down and coming up with a plan together. Yep. So the next one, you want to keep going?
Yeah. Be flexible.
Yeah.
So it's important to be flexible when it comes to managing your finances. So it's important to be willing to revisit your budget, and then also to review those ground rules that you all have established and adjust, pivot, and make changes when needed. And also to start small. So if you all are not sure about how your finances are going to be managed, or if you all are going to merge those, you can start by merging just one or two accounts. I say I'll have a joint account and also an emergency account, to be honest with you. If you both are working. But you should always have that stuff for yourself anyway, if you are the sole provider of your family. And then also to get financial help. If you are working and you have a 401k plan, there are financiers that manage that 401k plan. And so ask your HR department to see who those people are and if you can talk to them about managing your finances. And what you particularly want to talk about is retirement. What does retirement look like to you? And on average, a married couple need to have $2.5 million. Yes, that's million with an M, from the age of 65 until 95 years old. That's how much money it takes for you to basically make it to 95 years of age. Believe it or not, $2.5 million for the both of you. So that was roughly what? 1.225 million dollars for one person. So that is a bit overwhelming. So as early as you possibly can, talk to a financier, your financial advisors, about retirement and seeing if you're on pace. A lot of you will be surprised to know that a 401k alone will not get you there. So there are other things that you need to do besides managing a 401k, a savings account, a Roth account, or some other account.
Universal life insurance,
creating a small business, or either taking the option of not retiring and working a part-time job from 65 to 95, and Social Security on top of that. It takes all of that to get that $2.5 million. Believe me. And if you don't believe me, then talk to that financial advisor and they will tell you that. Because I know, trust me, I've talked to financial advisors and that's what they've told me too. So remember that communication is key in all of this. So the most important thing is to communicate with your partner about your finances. Communicate often. Like I said, have a quarterly meeting at the least about finances. Bring your financial reports, see your financial standings, and also remember the focus here is retirement, or either some sort of financial goal that you all want to do. Like my wife said, by paying down debts. If that is a goal of yours, maybe a trip. Could be a trip that you all, a wedding that you all want to have. Those financial goals are very important. So you want to make sure that you're on pace to meet those goals.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Merging finances it's a really big deal. So I like that. Just making sure to talk so things don't become overwhelming, because you don't want to make this such a deterring factor to where it can end up breaking down your relationship before it even gets started. So taking the time to start small is huge, and just being careful and calculated and transparent is really going to help out in your relationship completely. Yep.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. Especially speaking on finances, because a lot of us are not financially literate at all. And we don't even know what it means to invest and what investing look like as people. So, we understand what saving look like, or when also too, we don't understand why we need an emergency savings account, or how much that needs to be.
Yeah.
On average, Americans have in their savings roughly $400, and that's their emergency fund. Will that get you to, if you was to lose your job, how are you going to survive by the time you get the next job to support your current lifestyle?
Yeah.
So realistically, you need to have in your emergency account 6 months to a year of income in there in order to make sure that that is a true savings account.
Yeah, your monthly expenses, six
All
months
of your
of your
monthly,
all of
all of
your
your
monthly
monthly
expenses.
expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gonna and that's a huge goal for, I think, married or young couples getting into a relationship need to have in place.
That
Really think about emergencies.
right. And it's a think about the average people. The average income in America is roughly $55,000. That's a big goal for just average people, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, because
Yeah.
they're living at the least, paycheck to paycheck at most. So what are you all doing to increase your income so that you can get out of being average as far as your income goes?
Yeah.
You marry one other person, you're still making average money because their money is still average. And that's the challenge today in today's economy, and dealing with the inflation that goes on. Like
Yeah.
it sucks, guys. Like it really does. It's hard as far as being fiscally fit, financially fit. And I understand that's one of the contributing factors on why people are getting married later in life
Mm-hmm.
too. So at least people, the times are changing. People are waiting out to get married, and they're becoming more financially responsible about marriage. And I think
Yeah.
that's a great thing. But
Yeah.
overall, I think people and the average people and the average mindset as far as finances and settling where they are as far as being happy with their money, I think that needs to change too. So I think that people need to be more aggressive in their approach on the type of jobs they get, and be conscious of vertical movement, and not within the companies that they're in, but also job searching and actually doing their part as well to increase their finances.
Yeah, taking the initiative,
Right.
especially if one of your spouse has debt, a lot of debt. Don't be discouraged from working harder just to help your spouse. Again, not to say that this is you just paying off somebody's debt. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that as a financial unit, and especially if you are a man, it is very, very important that you are comfortable being able to step up into a provider role and taking the initiative if you see that your family needs more income, especially in modern times with the rate of inflation. We have to be able to keep up so that way our families aren't suffering and are able to keep up with the changes as things go on. And that also too, you can still meet your goals. This is not to say that your financial goals are never going to be obtained because the economy is the way it is. I don't believe any of that. I honestly believe that still all that power is, we are still now, in my opinion, living in an age where you can make more money than our ancestors ever thought of easily being able to make money simply by just going on your phone. That is such a great opportunity that we are presented with in this modern day and time, that also comes with the rate of inflation. But I say all that to say, please just keep being proactive and making sure that you guys are making financial goals together, working together, regardless of if your accounts are separate. Try to always think of a we mindset. If you want to keep your accounts separate, still be open to allowing your spouse to be the backup person that's on these accounts, so where that they can check and see if they need to, anything that you may ask them to. Give them that that comfort that, hey, I'm not just doing this and keeping it separate because I'm trying to have my own separate life, but more so that, we're keeping our autonomy in a, just because this was already established pre-marital, whatever. But honestly, truth be told, really consider that joint account. Really consider coming together, merging your lives, and having a financial unit that you both can see visually grow together. That's really going to help increase your intimacy and create a better, deeper bond and trust within each other.
Right, because who's going to, God forbid something happens to you and you're disabled or your health doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
Who's going to take care of you?
Mhm.
So it only makes sense to let your spouse to have transparency to all of that anyway.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, then all that money is missing somehow. And
Yeah.
then they have to get power of attorney over the accounts. Somehow they get into those private accounts that you all have. But,
Yeah.
Maybe that's another time to discuss that. But yeah, you all have a wonderful night, Blueprint family.
Oh,
Thank you
wow.
all for.
I didn't realize the time.
Oh yeah, I
This
did.
is a good conversation.
Yeah, it
but
was really good.
Much
Thank you all for joining us. Our Instagram follower. Thank you. Our YouTube followers. Thank you all for viewing, and also too, thank you for helping us get our subscriptions up.
Yes.
And we really appreciate it. Please continue to tell more people about our show, how wonderful it is, the value of it, and all the knowledge that we're passing down. Please like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, this is our community service. It
Yep.
really, really is to build help build better communities for our people, for sure.
Yep. And you all have a wonderful night. Blueprint family, peace.